Welcome back to MDO Crochet for this week's episode of Tips, Tricks, and Item Makes. This week is a beanie. For the beanie, you're going to need a double-ended Tunisian crochet hook. You'll need 2 balls of yarn, preferably the same color, a stitch marker, and of course, your scissors. I did it in contrasting colors so that way you could see how the decreases work. But the inside is nice and fluffy. It is a nice warm beanie. It has some stretch, has some give, and you could do this virtually in any stitch. But with all that being said, let's get to it. Alright, so I went ahead and I did my chain. Now to go ahead and do this beanie, you need to measure your head, the circumference of the head of the person you're making it for. Or you could use this standard sizing chart. I'm using a 4-weight acrylic. It's the Eddie Bauer Cozy Camper series, and the colorway is called Paprika, and it gives that orange color. But what I'm going to do now is I have this laid out the way I want it to make sure that all the chains are facing up. So that way when I join and start going through my back loops, I know when it twists, it's all going to twist the right way. Or you could go ahead and lay it down with your chain you're backing up. And that will just go like this, because I like to go through the back humps when I'm doing a beanie, because I'd still like just going through there. That's just me. That's just the way I always am. But you can go ahead and pull up your loop. And now we're about to interlock the two. Now they're interlocked. So now what you're going to do is continue pulling up your loops. What you can also do right here, right on that loop where you pulled through, is put a stitch marker there. That way you know where your row ends and where your row begins. So we're going to go ahead and pull up our loops. So the first 2 inches you'll have to measure, and because yours is probably going to be a different amount of rows, but the first 2 inches are going to be an alternating, after you get your foundation row up, is going to be an alternating knit and a purl stitch. Now I'm going to get a few amount of these pulled up so that way I can show you how to add your pull through color. Alright, so you have a good amount of loops on your hook and you need to get rid of them. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to twist our work, just flip to the ends, grab your pull through yarn. I don't call it the return pass because you're really not returning to anywhere. You're not returning back to the beginning, none of that. I pulled out a good amount because this ball of yarn I wanted a little too tight. But the way I like to do it is, of course, if you watch how I ever add colors, I always do a slip knot. This is considering our end, right? So how we're going to treat this, that's the loop we have up, as we normally would with an end. And then this is our yarn over. We're chaining 1. And then we're going to yarn over and go through 2. And you're going to yarn over and go through 2 all the way till you have about 4 loops left on your hook. So the way you just flip it and you continue. Now when you get all your loops up and you start seeing, uh-oh, something's not evening out. Well, that means you didn't lay everything out right. So you'll have to undo it and then continue again. But that's why I like to lay it out, make everything flat, make sure it stays flat when I'm turning it and laying it out. And then when I join them together, I continuously keep checking. Because sometimes I've got to where it's like you get halfway done or get it close to the row end and you're like, uh-oh, there's a twist. This is not good. So just be careful with that aspect. Now I'm going to go ahead and continue pulling at the foundation row, and I'll meet you back when we get to the where we put our stitch marker, okay? I'll see y'all here in just a second. Alright, so we're at our where we put our stitch marker, which tells me we're at row 2. So what we're going to do is keep our tail out of the way, but you're going to do a knit in that first foundation part. You knit, and then you're going to do a purl, which means you're going to keep your yarn in front, and you're going to pull up a stitch, go through the bar, and then drop your yarn, and then pull the loop through. And you're going to do a knit, purl, and you're going to alternate knit and purl. And you're going to do this all the way around, and you're going to do it for roughly 2 inches. And that should be a good size brim. So just do your knit and your purl. And I cannot say you're going to do it for 5 rows or 10 rows because everybody's tension and everybody's yarn is going to be different. You may not use 4-weight. You may not use a 6mm hook. So that's all going to change per person. But you're going to alternate the knit and a purl stitch because that's going to give you your ribbing for this. And again, you're going to do it for 2 inches. Alright, so we're coming up to the last few stitches that we have going on. Now, I did measure this. It is 2 inches, and that's about how big your brim should be. It's going to be about 2 inches once I get this row done. And that's about how big I want it to be. And as you can see, between the knit and the purl, how it gives a really good brim anyway. And it gives a little bit of a squishiness to it. So we're going to go ahead and continue down, getting our loops pulled up. Alright, so I'm at the last stitch. And I put a marker in there so I know where to start. Now you could do this in any stitch you want. However, I'm going to do this in the knit stitch. And you're going to, once you start your new row in your knit, you're going to want to do another additional 2.5 to 3 more inches. And you could measure it on your own head how far you really need to go because everybody's head is different. So we should need between 4.5 to 5 total inches. And then we could start working on the decreases. And the decreases will go pretty quick because we'll be doing 6 total decreases. So it'll close it off really quick. So just go ahead and continue your next round after your 2 inches with whatever stitch you choose. Alright, so we're about 4.5 inches. Maybe just a touch more. So what I did is I took another clip and I went straight up from where we started. And this is our beginner. Now we're going to be doing some decreasing. So how we're going to do this is we're going to center everything, right? We want everything centered. Because we're going to go from right about here. You're going to guesstimate. And you're going to want to just put a stitch marker. And then same on the other side. Just guesstimate. And then exactly where you put those, so you can flip them up. Flip your work. And where you put those, and you're going to need 3 on each side. So right about here. And then right about here. Kind of want them to mirror as close as you can. Because this is where you're going to be doing your decreasing. And then there, where this one's at. So let's see if we can flip it up a little bit. So we can see where the stitch is. And it should be right about here. And this is how we're going to do our decreases. So you'll start your row as normal, which I did. And then you're going to come down and keep going until your first decrease. Now your first decrease, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Even though we're using the knit stitch, you can do your decrease. So what we're going to do is right at our stitch marker, is we're going to go through 1, through 2. That is a decrease, and we're going to use it as a simple. We're going to do it by the simple stitch method. And then you're just going to continue. Now I need to go ahead and do my return or pass through. Okay, now we're at another decrease. So you're just gonna, you could do it as the knit, but you'd have to come through this one and then go that way, and it just doesn't look right. It doesn't do it right. So just, that's how you do it. You pull through the 2, then continue back on our knit. And that's how you're going to handle your decreases. And we're at another decrease. And just 2 together. Because we're dropping 6 stitches every round. Now when we get back to the beginning, that's where we're going to change up just a minute, because we didn't start a decrease at our first stitch on for the row count. We started it afterwards, and we did that on purpose. Now we're at another one, so we'll stitch 2 together. All right, we need to go ahead and cast off. Do our return pass, or pass through as I like to call it. Okay, so I pulled up on my stitches, and I stopped 2 before my center back. And that's what I'm calling it. It's where our row technically begins every round. So what you're going to do is you're going to take those 2 that you stopped before that row, and you're going to do those 2 together. And you're going to continue doing that. You're going to, so the next 2 will be these 2. Same with that. And then you just, at the center, you keep just doing the normal stitch. And then when we get back around to our next decrease, so we're at our next decrease, and you're just going to do it how we've been doing it. 2 together, 1 from there, and the next one over. And you just yarn over and pull it through both. And then just continue pulling up your stitches. Yes, whatever yarn you did use as your pull through is going to show. That's inevitable because you're squishing the stitches. You're creating a new line. You're blending your lines from going straight. Now we're curving one into another. And this is why I did it in 2 different colors, so you can see when that happens that that's going to happen. But that's absolutely fine too. So you'll just continue until you get small enough, and I will be back when we get there to the size that we need before we can do a cinch and close everything off. So I wanted to show you guys, when you decrease, this is going to happen. That's why I did it in 2 colors so you can see it. And it's going to kind of, with where you're decreasing, you're going to have little peaks. That's just going to happen. You're going to continue until you have like a small hole. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our main yarn, our main color, and we're just going to go and slip through this. Tighten that one up a little bit. You can go ahead and snip it off because you're not going to need it no more. Because now we are going to be doing our row close off. And how you do a row close off is how you always do it. And whatever stitch you're doing it in, pull up a stitch, slip it off. And you're going to do that all the way around. All right, we're just about at the last stitch. And we're here. But what I'm going to do is we're going to go through the top. And you can see the 2 chevrons where you started doing our close off. So we need to go through underneath those 2. Yarn over and pull through. And then cast off. And then me being extra, I like to do an extra one. Now here's where you're going to leave a long tail. And the reason why we're leaving a long tail is because we're going to do a little something here. So get your darning needle. But this is where we're going to do it. You're going to go in. Going to take your yarn, shove it in, grab it, pull it through, flip your hat inside out. First, you need to tie off your pass-through. Alright, now that you got your pass-through or return, pass color, done, now thread your needle with the long-tailed main color, or the one that you closed everything with. Because we're going to do a little game here. You're just going to go underneath the stitches barely, and you're going to weave it through them. And when you're doing two separate colors, it's easier to see which ones you're wanting to weave through, because you're wanting to weave through the back, because we're going to do some cinching here in a moment. And that's another reason I left the other color a little long too, so we can do our cinching. We'll take our other color and weave it the other way. So you want decent tails on both of them. And go under it, so that way you're not creating any other undue tension. And this one you can go through the other colors vertical bars that you can see in the back. It's not going to come through the top or the front, I mean. But you can just weave it through. And then we're going to grab this one and then bring it right down with that other one. Now this is what we're going to do. We're going to cinch them. Bingo. There you are. Now you can just tie it off and then weave in your ends and you're done. And that will be your beanie. So I'm going to finish the weaving in and I'll be right back. Alright, so all the ends are woven in. And this is your basic Tunisian beanie. When I say basic, it is very beginner friendly. Now we will get into some more beanies that are more advanced. And when I say advanced, is because they cover different ways of doing things. But this is your first basic beanie. It will do everything you wanted to do. It'll keep your ears warm. It'll keep your head warm. This is a beginner-friendly beanie. Well, I hope you like this tutorial. If you can give me a like and subscribe, it'd be greatly appreciated. And remember, folks, keep stitching.